On the show today, I have Thompson. Stephen reached out to me to be on the podcast. His story is just one of helping people. Business owner, father of three, had problems during COVID like all of us, but he overcame them. But not only that, he has managed to inspire and help hundreds of men to start talking more. He has been able to develop and have a relationship with his son that is not housebound, and now is able to go out and, as you will hear in the story, able to go to watch football matches with 75,000 people. Guys, this is truly one of my favorite podcasts, favorite stories of how to lead a stronger life. The big thing I say is that you gotta win the morning.
Heavy requirements on them to lift heavy weights.
The conversation has to be changed.
What you truly value.
No right way and there's no wrong way.
Become the source of struggle.
I kept finding myself in tears from the physical pain.
You're listening to the Stephen Kinsler podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. On today's show, I have Stephen Thompson, and we're going to talk about work-life balance, having kids, and just how to navigate yourself into kind of doing what you need to do for your family and running a business. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, dude, tell me. So, firstly, I know you have three kids. We're going to get into that now. But what business do you currently do, and how have you found that affect you and your kind of family life?
Well, I currently run a central heating company, a boiler installation company. Company's called the Boiler Doctor. So we generally do boiler installation, service, maintenance, repair, that kind of work. I had a plumbing company, which ranged from everything. I did everything from bathroom installation to outside taps to fixing block drains, whatever. If it came in, I did it. And so I sort of niched into just doing the boilers because I found I enjoyed doing that work more. But like being self-employed as a dad of three is so difficult to sort of manage without the right tools and techniques that I've sort of learned over the years. And there's no right or wrong with that. I think you just learn it as you go. You know, you sort of it's got to be stand the test of time sort of thing. You've got to work through the downtimes, learn from them, and then implement them to create the good, if you know what I mean. So yeah. It's meeting yourself where you're at in that journey, I think. Because I've got an autistic son as well, so my middle son's autistic, which has brought challenges in itself because you have to sort of deal with him in a different way to you do the other two, as well as manage your business, and so I have it working and providing as well. You know, you've got a lot of pressure as self-employed, that it's all on you. You know, my wife couldn't work because she had to look after Stevie at home, and so it's all on me to provide enough financial gain for the whole family to live. You know, so it's huge pressure from every angle.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I suppose, like obviously I own a business. I have two kids and I have a wife and I have to support my family. And I think a lot of people don't understand or realize pressure that is always there, especially if you're the person, you have to get the business in, you have to do the business, you have to market the business, you have to sell the business, you have to do everything. And then you have to go home and be a dad and a husband, and you have to do all those things. And I'm not saying that, we're unique people in what we're doing, but there is an awful lot of pressure that never gets spoken about. Also, at the same time, you're not really allowed to give out about it. You have to be the man. You have to be there. You have to stand up. Because everyone else is coming to you for their problems. You have to take all of that on board, and then still be dad, still be husband, still be the business owner. And then where is time for Steve?
I agree. 100%.
And Stephen has his day.
Yeah, because you're exactly that. So you're the people that the person that you're their role model almost. You're their person they're looking to for the answers. So if you're worried, then they're extremely worried. So you put on that thing that you're not. And I went through that for years. So it was like I was smiling when you were saying that, because I remember pulling up outside my house, absolutely exhausted, like just totally gone. Everything had gone wrong. This had happened, that had happened. You know, bills were coming out. I didn't have money for them, and the pressure was just immense. And then you've got to go in and you've got to put this big smile on your face and say, "Hey, darling, you all right?" Because that's what we do, because we're men, you know, and we just put that facade on, never get spoken about, and it's only sustainable for so long. You know, that may be years, but at a point it's gonna overtake you, and you're gonna end up not breaking, I suppose, but it's gonna bring you down. It's gonna make you. You need to address that.
Well, I think that's a big thing. So, like, burnout happens. Like, I've been burnt out in my business. I remember, like, and I've said this before. There was 3 days. That was when the knee dropped for me big time. I think my son was 6 months old. I went to work on a Wednesday morning, and I didn't see him a week as I worked in the gym. So it was like 5:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock at night, Saturday morning, because of my shift, the way I had to work, because I was trying to do everything myself. My son was always asleep when I got home, which is, I guess, 3 days without seeing your kid. And that's crazy. And it's a choice that was made. But I think the other side of it is like, yeah, burnout happens. But also, that's why male suicide rates are huge. That's why male depression is used. But again, not spoken about. We don't talk enough about it. Yeah, there's people out there like Movember and all them guys out there that are like trying to bring it to light. But there's always been this kind of stigma that you shouldn't call. You're the man. You suck it up. You take the brunt. You carry the load. But yeah, it can be the point where things go wrong, and it's never a good place to be. So for you, when did you kind of figure out that you needed to make changes to be able to do everything that you need to do for your family, your wife, your kids, and your business as well?
I'd say when COVID came, and I know it's a cliche really, but like COVID hit, and I'd got comfortable almost in what I was doing. I weren't looking to grow. I weren't looking to expand. I had the name around of my business. People were using me. I were sort of, you know, I was just in that zone of just coasting, I call it. I was just coasting through life, and it was like I had nothing to chase, no bear to hunt. And what happened was I sort of work at that point when we went into lockdown, everybody just cancelled. So that was my income gone.
Yeah.
Done. It was literally overnight, and I was living day to day, or week to week. You know, it was like money in, money out, money in, money out. And so I was skint. That was it. I had nothing. You know, I was like, I've got no work. What am I going to do? And I thought at that point, I either stack it off and go work for somebody if I can, and just give up, or I put everything I've got into creating this business that can provide for my family. And it was a really difficult time, because that was my thoughts on my own, and I'm thinking, I can't express this because the people around me are then going to start worrying, and I can't have that. You know, it's like it was something inside me that told me, just be strong, you know. And it was like, I'm going to do this. So I joined like programs online to help me sort of with my business. I'm talking business marketing, that kind of thing, to sort of push my business next level and do things that others aren't doing. And it worked, and it was very basic when I first started. So it was like creating leaflets for offline marketing, that kind of thing. You know, I'm posting leaflets through people's doors. And it was a great introduction to sort of online learning almost, because I hadn't done anything like that since school, really. Do you know what I mean? Not learning, sat down, and I hated it. But when I started doing it, I realized I really enjoy that. So I started doing the online learning stuff, and I got into sort of mindset, personal development through that. Yeah, but I had zero knowledge about it previous. And what I did was I noticed that when I was going to service people's boilers or do a job for them through COVID, this was because it was like a key worker. I could go in and fix a leak or whatever. The customers that I'd previously worked for, especially males, sat at a computer looking at a screen, going to the kitchen to get a pie, back to the screen, and they wouldn't talk to me. Whereas I'm a people person. I could, you know, I love I love chatting, I love talking, I love conversation. And I'm like trying to talk to these guys, and it was multiple. It was obvious that this was happening. And I was like, it was one word answers. They felt uncomfortable talking to me. And as I was talking, it just went on and on and on. And I got chatting to my wife about it. I'm like, everyone's been really strange. Like, nobody wants to hold a conversation. And my wife, she used to tell me to nip to the shop on the way home because I was out. She was at home with my son. And she was doing it more and more and more regular. And I got home one day and I said to her, will you just nip to the shop for us, darling? And she just burst out crying and said, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? She said, I can't go outside. I physically can't. And she'd had this burden because she'd been in so, had this fear of going out. And it got me thinking, like, how many other people that were perfectly fine and normal pre that are now struggling and can't do it? It's happened to my wife under my nose, and I didn't realize. So I decided to set up like a men's walk and talk group, like a men's mental health walk and talk group. And I just I just did a live video. And bear in mind, I'm just a local heating engineer from York. I'm nothing special. I just love people. And I thought this will really help some guys, get them out, get them walking and just have a chat. It weren't about telling us all your problems. It weren't about, it was about building a relationship and just being able to chat and talk and do something. And I did like a live video on Facebook. I promoted it all online everywhere. I got hundreds of people messaging me. It was so time consuming, and it was generally wives messaging about their husband or sisters about their brother, or it was never the guys reaching out. It was always someone. And I did this thing, and it was like arranged for. I thought if I do it on an evening, then people haven't got ties with work, and it was like 6:30 at the local supermarket that leads onto field. It's about a mile right round it. So I thought, well, it's not too long, you know what I mean? It'll take half an hour to get round and have a nice chat. And I turned up and nobody was there. It's me. So I'm like sat there. Bear in mind, I'd had all these messages. We're going to come. We're going to come.
Yeah.
I was seeing cars pull in and then pull out. And I'm thinking, well, how was that one of them? But nobody's here, so nobody wants to approach. And I was like, well, what do I do now? So I rang my wife. It was like 20 minutes after the meet time. I thought, well, what can I do? And I rang my wife and I said, well, what do I do? Nobody's turned up. And she just said, what, are you going to give up there? And I was like,
brilliant.
I was ready at that point to just go home and sack it off. And I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to do that. So I went on the field and went live on Facebook. And I was like, hey, everyone, I'm here. I've arranged this thing. Hundreds of you got in touch with me. And I'm on my own, but that's okay. That's all right. I get where you're at. It's nerve-wracking. It's hard to do. It's, been a guy that comes up to somebody and says, oh, it's me. It's nerve-wracking. I get it. But please don't make me walk around this field on my own in a fortnight. I said, because I just don't want to do it. I can sit on the live video all I want, but I want conversation with real people. Come and have a conversation with me. And I was like, so I left it at that. And that video sort of went viral in our local area. I won't say it went viral, but in our local area, it went mad. And the next time I went to go, I went in a fortnight, promoted it again. I got 30 guys there.
30?
Yeah, so I got 30 guys walking around this field, chatting about day-to-day stuff and building real connections with real people. And it was inspiring for me to stand back and look at some guy that was sat in front of his laptop last week and couldn't go out of his house, walking around a field. And still now they still meet up. There's guys that go out together they're all into different things, so some of them do pub quizzes together. Some of them go to cinema. Some of them go to gym. Some of them, and so it's had a real inspiring effect on people in our local area, which has been amazing,
And there's a few things on that. So the first thing that testament for you doing it, and then the fact that you have a rock of a wife who goes, is not all you're going to do, which I think is great, because I had a similar situation with my wife when we thought we would close the gym, and she turned around and goes, you don't want to do anything else, so make it work. And I was like, oh, okay. But it's very, you get that kind of, and what are you going to do? Okay, well, I better go do something. Leaving it that as like having 30 lads turn up, that's 30 families impacted. So that's at least what numbers wise 120, 150 people that through 1 to 2 Facebook messages, impacted. And it wasn't a massive amount. It was just something you noticed, and then you said, "Hey, I don't like this. We could do something about it." Imagine guys were able to just constantly be able to go and do stuff like that.
Yeah,
we would live in a better society. We would have guys that are more willing to do things and help each other out, and it's what we want to do. It's that fear of you ask for help and someone goes, "Come on, what are you doing? What are you whinging for?" And they don't like. Whereas sometimes you need to go, you know what, I'm really struggling. I just don't know how to communicate, and guys can't communicate to women as well as guys can communicate to men. Like when you're in a group of lads, you'll be more willing to open up than you would be to maybe your spouse. And like you said, you don't want to show them that you're struggling, because if you're struggling, then they will worry. And if they will worry, then it comes back on you, and it doesn't make the situation any better. So I think that's huge. And like that, you said, like, do you still do things like that now, or have you?
No, so I sort of got it to a point where I introduced the members to run the group, and that was always the plan. Because for me, I had that. I'm good at conversation. Yeah. I'm good with people. I have got peers around me. I had all that. It was the other guys that didn't have it. So it worked for me. I was building that for them. So I sort of got the main people that came every fortnight, because this ran for about a year, and it built up. So we had like 60, 70 guys through it in total over a period of time, which is a lot. And obviously winter come and it whittled down to only 4 turning up because it was chucking it down. But it was sort of, it got to a point where it was eating into my family time, and it was becoming a problem for me, because I won't say a problem, but like these guys, when they had a problem, they was coming to me with the problem, which is fine. But there's only so much of that I can take. I wanted it to build a group of people that could take control of that themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But if you're not able to give yourself time for you, then you can't give the time to your family.
Exactly. So that
people
it was having a sort of a negative impact on my family.
Yeah.
Because I was like trying to run this business, running through door, getting changed, straight back out again to a walk and talk group, and I've got 3 kids at home that are waiting for daddy. And it was like, it was just too much. But I did it for a year, and I sort of handed the reins over to them, and they've sort of kept the group going. I don't think it runs as often now, but I bob along from time to time, and it's it's one of them things that I'm really proud that I did, because like you say, like I'm great at holding my own. Like if I don't drink and I go to the pub, like my mum and dad are big drinkers, probably the reason I don't drink. And I think their era, that was their way of socializing. Like we're social media now. My mum and dad, if you didn't go to the pub, you didn't go out with your mates. That was how it was. So it was really easy. It was a social thing for them. Whereas we don't need to do that now. All we do, we need to get out and about with people, but I think we do it in a different way. We know more about the drink and what negative impact it has. So it's one of them. You think that you're going to be out of the loop if you're not drinking. So what's happened with that is I didn't have an intention of stopping drinking because it was bad for my health or bad for my family or I had a problem with it. I didn't really drink. I drank in my teens and went out with lads and all that kind of stuff. I just had a young family, and everywhere we went, I was driving. So if I'm driving, I'm not having one. But I just didn't have a drink, and then it ended up being a year down the line, and I opened in this. We've got like a pantry, open pantry up, and I still had a crate of cans in there that I had the previous Christmas. So I'd stopped drinking for a whole year without even knowing I'd stopped drinking. So I just don't drink. But what's happened is, like, if I go out with family, and I noticed this, it was my uncle's funeral about 6 months ago, and I went to the pub for his afterdo or whatever, and my sister sat there, my mum, my dad, everyone's around, all family, and they go to the bar for a round. and they bring me a Coke and put a Coke on the table in front of me. My sister says, Mum, I just want a Coke. She said, oh, what are you having a bloody Coke for? Have a drink. Now, the expectation of me having a drink is zero. She don't even ask, like, oh, Steve won't have a drink. I'll give him a Coke. What she's done is she said to Lisa, why aren't you drinking? Have a drink. So she's put an expectation on Lisa to accept that drink, and Lisa then feels the pressure.
Yeah.
You do it for a period of time and you get rid of the expectation. That makes sense.
I think that's a big point, because I'm doing every year I do about 100 days. Right on thing. And I would very rarely do it. Like in my teens, like yourself, I did the boys, the lads, and all that. But I very rarely drink now, and I've given myself the year. I'm off it for the year, just to see. So from April to next April. But it's that expectation, because like you mentioned, I have friends that I would only associate with if we were having a beer.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get them out for a walk or a hike or do a challenge, do a run, or even just maybe go cinema or do anything like that. You ever go for lunch or coffee. It's, I'll only ever see them if it's in a pub and there's an alcohol. There's a drink in front of them. And then if you're not drinking, they feel awkward. Oh, why aren't you having the drink? And I still think there's a big stigma today in regards to alcohol. Smoke, cool. I don't want to do either at the moment, so be okay with me. Like, I'm just because I'm done with the evening. But that's I think that stigma of one have one is still, I think it's like still prevalent in people if they try not to drink. It's like, what's wrong with you? And it's the only drug in the world that people who don't want to drink it, they have a problem.
Yeah.
And most times, if you don't want to take drugs, it's because if you take drugs, it's because of the problem. But if you want to have an alcohol and you don't have alcohol, that's the problem. It's like, it's such a backwards way to look at it. And when you break it down to the brass tacks of it all, that's pretty much it. Like it's not okay for you to want to be healthier.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is strange, but I do think I can sort of see that it's becoming easier to be accepted when people say that they're not drinking. I think it's becoming a thing. Like, a lot more people are doing it. And I think the more people that do it, the more it'll become accepted amongst them people that you just spoke about, them people that and then probably see the results that you're getting and are like inspired by it, and I want a bit of that, and it'll just grow and grow and grow. I think we're starting to see that now, that curve, because 5 years ago it was a massive thing. It was like, what, you're not drinking, what, whereas now I think it's becoming like, if you tell people you're not doing it, especially, I think the pressure. So, but I'm not in that environment anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm just outside of that, looking in, and that's what I can see. But like, I'm not sat in a pub with people that are drinking. They're not my peers anymore. You learn and grow.
And there's another thing. There's another thing on that. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine. I was a bit different point of view. He got himself. I met him. Obviously, fitness and health, and I pretty much told him, said, you're going to end up with a heart attack. And his dad died of heart conditions and stuff like that. He point blank said, you're an embarrassment to yourself, and you need to cop on, as and I said, you love that woman? Yeah. I said, then fucking be. And he went home, tried to get himself in shape, got himself into great shape, changed his career, started doing really well in his career and all that, and then him and his wife split up. And I remember he was kind of giving out a little bit about it, and I said, just to let you know, you need to remember this one thing. She got with you when you were at your unhealthiest. She got with you when you worked at that particular job. You were the only one in that relationship that changed everything. You changed, not her. That's why you ended up breaking up. Because she didn't want the life that you wanted, and you didn't want the life that she wanted. You know what? That's okay too. And when he realized that, I think he was a bit kind of taken back on, like, as it was initially like, oh, she doesn't want to change. And he wanted her to change. He wanted her to do the things that he wanted to do. But again, it's not what wasn't her gig. So that aspect of, if I make a change, I have to then find a new peer group, and transition between you changing from your group of peers to finding a new group can be quite awkward. And most people get there and then they end up falling back and going back into old habits. And so we went off a little bit of a curve there, but after, obviously during COVID, you got the group set up. So how did you get everything back on track? Obviously, once things started opening back up for you, how did everything kind of get back on track for you in regards to just
I started really focusing on the business and the on personal development, and sort of being the best version of me and trying to do that. And I got introduced to Paul Mort through the coach that I was using. They did a charity thing, and they all did a training in it, and I bought that, and I just related really well to Paul. He was my sort of guy, so I started doing Paul's stuff, and it just all transformed from there, because it changed the way of thinking for me about everything, about certain situations. And I turned my business round to make my business so that it sort of worked in my favor in terms of time. Because you imagine, like, a trades business, and I don't know if it's the same for you, by the way, but a trades business, you're on the tools all day, you're doing the physical work through the day. The phone's constantly ringing. You're trying to get, you'll answer for, I'll get back to you later, Mrs. Jones, for instance. Just send us a text with your details on. So when you walk through that door, you've got 35 phone calls to make, 27 emails to respond to, 14 quotes to do, 7, you know what I mean? And it's like a never-ending battle of, like, how can I get through this? And there's no wonder that people fail it or really struggle or get run down with it, because I found myself up at 3 o'clock in the morning sending quotes, setting it to send at 7 in the morning, so it's not sending at 3 o'clock. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm just consistently, like, overworked, and then my daughter will come in and be like, "Dad, in a minute." "Dad, yeah, in a minute." I'm just, "Dad, in a minute." And that in a minute to her in that moment, whatever I'm doing right then is more important than she is.
Yes.
And it's not. It's not. And so I went to work on that. Like when I've got them moments in time with my kids, they're for my kids.
Yes.
So I sort of started working on the business, implementing these different tools, techniques. I got a VA that's brilliant, by the way, that not only takes care of my phone calls, like booking my diary, do my quotes, do my invoicing. We set templates up. We've done this, we've done that, and sort of eliminated the things that were sucking up my time. And it sort of, once I saw results in that, I then got the bug for it, because it's like, well, I can save time doing that.
Yes.
Well, what else can I save time for? And bear in mind, at this point, I'm still doing bathrooms, kitchen taps, outside taps, this, that, radiators, whatever. Yes, I'll do it. Yes. And whatever I said yes to, and I think this is one of Paul's saying, but whatever I say yes to, I'm automatically saying no to something else.
Yes.
Because I'm just sucking up that time, and I'm a specialist in nothing. I'm a specialist in absolute. I'm a specialist in everything. I don't know how to word that, but I've sort of, when I started niching into the thing that I love, because again, it was becoming like, I can't do no more of this. I was the guy when Margaret rang and said, "I've phoned 12 guys and they can't resolve this." I'd get this thing, I won't be beaten. I'll get that resolved. But I'll go and earn 30 quid because I didn't want to charge poor Margaret. And I've been there 5 hours to resolve this tap that nobody else could resolve, and walk away with this, I've helped her and I feel great. But I've earned no fucking money, and that's why we do it.
I think, like, I've been in the same boat, like, where it's been coaching, like, and coaching people is mentally exhausting, and then you're doing like 9-10 hours a day, and then you still have to run the business, do the taxes, do the invoices, make sure all the memberships, social media, all the admin, all the emails, all the phone calls. You have to do all of them. And then, like you said, like when you get home, still working, kids want to do stuff, and you're like, no, 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 not now, not now, not now. And then, like you said, it's like you're not important enough to me now because, and then your heart is like, well, I need to get this done so we can get the bills over the line this month and all of that. And I think that when you obviously work with Paul and when you get that kind of insight into the freedom that you can have by making those changes, huge. Like I get to do this now on a Wednesday. So Wednesdays are more of my quieter days deliberately now because I get to do podcasts or I get to work from home. And I'm not needed in the gym on a Wednesday. I'm only in by choice. And that took years to get to. That took a long time. So I definitely, like, I think a lot of guys that be in the same situation that you were in would definitely resonate in like getting, and I suppose it's getting the help or getting someone to guide you to make the decisions that you know you need to do, but it's just hard to pull the trigger on.
Yeah, you just don't because it's your normal, it's your routine.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity, isn't it? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Unless something gives, unless something changes, and I believe it's self-awareness. It's you. You are the business owner. You are the business. It's you. They're not two separate things, you know. And you have to take a bit of responsibility and go step back and go, right, you know, what can I change here to make this work for me? And it's not about, right, I want to transform my business overnight because that's just a massive failure. It's not going to work. It's incremental, little, tiny steps. What can I do today and create an habit in that then I can get working for me in my business and then add something else once that's working. And I think key to this, and it was a massive lesson for me, was I'd go onto these trainings and I'd be like, right, I want to do that bit. I'm doing email marketing now. I want to do that. I want to do this.
Yes.
And you sort of like get into everything and finish nothing, and nothing changes. And it's like, right, okay, well, I know I'm not very good with the phone calls, for instance. I need to get an handle on that and make that work. But then you get distracted and start doing your email, and then you get distracted and start doing something else. Whereas I was like, I did that for years, you know. So I was up, being coached, being mentored, and I'm still doing this, nitpicking all over the place. Whereas I hit a point where I was like, right, let's get that finished, done, working for me. And it's led to a point now whereas I'm like, I've got everything automated and systemized in a way that when an inquiry comes in, they're going to a pipeline, and that pipeline sends automated email and text messages. It sends them videos attached to it with what to expect on our next visit. And I do nothing. I just turn up and do the job. But that's took work, took effort and time to get to that point. You know, it's not like I just went, right, I want this thing and it's going to happen. I just to add, I didn't even open a computer until COVID hit. I was the last of the generation that used computers. I played out, you know. It's one of them things. So when everything that I knew was going digital and everyone looks on Google, I only just got Facebook when COVID hit. And I've got all this set up in my business that I've created and I've just learned it. And by investing that time into that, but that's in turn going to buy me the time back later on down the line. And anybody can do it. It's just having that awareness and ability to go, right, how can I do it? Who can help me with this? Like I'm on this podcast as a result of a who.
Yes.
Because you need to ask the right questions to the right people who know, you know, like, who can help me with this? I've got website guys now. I've got people who can help me with my copy. I've got people, you know, and I'll try and help them as best I can and make them connections. Because it's networking.
And I think that's the big thing. And I suppose it kind of goes back to the original kind of like the start of the conversation where you're talking about getting the guys out to talk, because it's the who, not the how.
Yeah.
Most people are willing to help. Like when you put it out there, hey, be on podcasts, I was like, I don't know if any other guys did. I think one or two of the other guys did, but I was like, yeah, I'd love to have you on, because already I know that if any business owner who is struggling listens to this, they're going to understand that there is a way out, there is a way to get help, there is a way to start living a better life, because you've clearly done it. But it wasn't like done. Work, sacrifice, putting in the time, and then it will pay off. But it's that understanding that if you ask for help, there is a lot of people out there that we absolutely 100% willing to help you. But again, we go back to a lot of men won't ask for the help because it's a sign of weakness or some. And I would have fallen into that category as well years ago. Now I still do from time to time. But like I'm obviously a lot better at it now. So in regards to obviously your business, you're doing well. You at home. You also have you wanted of your second son, as you say, his name's Stephen.
Stevie.
Stevie. So Stevie has a form of autism. So how did that, when you kind of realized there was something there, how did that start impacting you, family, just in the bay? And then you had another son, another child on top of it, like after Stevie. So how did that? How was that impact on the family and you as a man?
Well, so we had Ebony, who's my first daughter. She's now 19, but she was my wife. My wife was pregnant at 15, so she had Ebony at 16, and I got with her when she was 16. So I brought Ebony up as my own.
Yeah.
And we then had Stevie. So that was 5 years later. So Stevie's now 16. So I'm like 37. I've got a 16-year-old, 19-year-old. So I'm like a really young dad. And then we had Tilly, who's now 10.
Yeah.
So the reason I set up self-employed was because we had problems when Stevie was young. He couldn't talk, so he didn't speak until he was 4. It was just really strange in the things that he did. You know, he wouldn't communicate with other kids. It was a slow progression into this, and it was like school was saying, you know, we got him into like nursery and preschool, and they're like, there's something a bit strange, and we're like in denial, like, no, he's just a boy, he's just a slow learner, you know, just like fine. And I suppose we didn't want to know that there was anything wrong. We was like hiding behind the fact that might be a possibility. And we watched a program, believe it or not, we watched a program called The A Word. And it was about an autistic boy. It was like a BBC drama thing. Yeah. And I was sat on the bed, and I was sat watching the telly at the end of the bed, and I was probably doing some paperwork or something. And I'm sat watching this thing, and I'm like welling up. I'm thinking, God, because it's like watching my son, like watching TV on the screen. And I turned around, and my wife was just in floods of tears. Like, we need help. We need support with this, like, now.
Yeah.
We sort of went back to school then and said, look, we get it. Like, we're not in denial anymore. Because we was like to school, like, no, you're not doing that. We're not off for this meeting. We're not, because we was in denial and we knew best, you know. And we was never after the diagnosis. We never wanted the label of autism. It weren't a thing, you know, like, it's not a thing that I like to throw about, you know what I mean? It's one of them. He's got it and we'll deal with it. And it was like, and that's the mentality I went into it with. Like, if he has got this thing, we'll support him the best we can, doing the best we can. And that's what we sort of have always done, me and my wife. And we work as a team because that's difficult to deal with. Like, you can't chastise him in a way I can my other 2 girls because it doesn't work. Like, me raising my voice to here like a parent does. Yeah. He'll go here, then I'll go here, then he'll go here, you know, and it's like a battle until a window's smashed or something. I had to learn that when he goes here, I go here. Yeah. And you still chastise him, but in a different, lower tone, you know. But then when my daughters misbehave and I go lower, it doesn't work. They try and run them off, pull a fast one. But then I go here with my daughters, and then I'm treating them differently to Stevie. Yeah. So in their head, I'm being different. Like, I'm treating them different. So it's a real difficult getting that balance when you've got siblings, like, because like you need to keep them even. Obviously, you don't want them to feel like Stevie's getting extra attention, or especially at a young age, because now Ebony's 19, she understands that Stevie's autistic. Even Tilly at 10 now understands, but when they're 5 and 6, they don't. You know, it's real difficult for them to get their head around. So we had tons and tons of challenges in the fact, like, we had to leave our own wedding early. and people are blown away by that. Like we got married and we had the night do. Bear in mind we don't drink, so I worked like even on my wedding day, it worked like a big thing. And it got to like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and Stevie had done the whole day, and he'd had enough. He was about 10 at this point. He'd had enough, and I only had to look at him, and I could see in his eyes, he was done. He'd tried his best. He'd been there all day. He won't go with anybody else apart from me and his mum at this point. So I called it a night. Said, right, we're done. We're finished. You know, like me and my wife, we're going home and we're taking Stevie home. And everyone was like, what? You can't just leave it. I said, I can do what I like. You know, it's mine, like, and I'm looking out for him. And it sounds crazy, but that's what I wanted to do because he'd give me all day. I didn't think he'd make 2 hours.
Yeah.
He did all day, and he didn't even. I just had to look in his eyes, and I knew, you know. So like them challenges that most people would go, oh my God, it's my wedding, and I can't even stay, you know. But I look at the realistic side of it. Like he's done all day. Like look at what he has done, not what he hasn't, you know. And it's finding the small little things with Stevie. So like he went to a specialist school for autism. And he has to get a taxi there. It's part of their policy. Like you can't drop them on a taxi comes, picks them up, takes them to school. It's part of building the confidence up and the self, you know. And I think it's brilliant. But when they first told us that when he was in primary, we're like, he can't do it. And they're like, why can't he do it? And we're like, he can't. We know that he physically won't be able to do that. And I think we put that pressure onto them, not knowing what they can do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So your protective expectations, because it was a protective thing of like you don't want anything to go wrong, so you can't do it. Yeah.
What if he panics on way? What if he struggles? What if he has a meltdown? What if? And not give him the opportunity to actually do it. So what school did was they planned taxi trips to his new school once a week for the last 30 weeks of his school.
Yeah.
And he went with somebody from his school. So he'd go to school as normal. They'd then get a taxi from the school to the new school. They'd then get a taxi back. And that was how they did it, you know, and then you just got a taxi. And it come to him leaving primary and we have 6 weeks off, going to secondary school. And we're like dreading it. He's not going to do it, we're saying. We obviously didn't let Stevie know this, but we're like, no way. There's no way he'll cope with that. He won't be able to do it. And, you know, we're planting that seed of doubt before giving him the opportunity to do it. And he come walking downstairs in his uniform. Am I still with you?
Yep.
He come walking downstairs in his uniform, and he walked out at the door and waved and went in this taxi. And I just broke down. I just started crying at the door. It was emotional. I still get emotional now. I can feel it. Feel the energy. So like, because I had that doubt that he wouldn't do it, but in reality, it was like, it was me that was planting the doubt, because he can do these things. He just needs that extra support. I mean, COVID hit and things took a turn for the worst, and we went downhill in terms of his, you know, it was all well and good during COVID because it was in his safe place. It was fine. He couldn't leave the house. But that then put a barrier up because that became his new normal. So for him to go out on a day trip even, or a walk or anything, was too overwhelming. He'd have panic attacks. He started with health anxiety, panic attacks, that kind of thing. But I'm on this personal development journey of you can achieve anything. And you came up with a point. You talked about something earlier that I was going to bring up, was about your partner and your friend's wife not being on the same journey. And I think that's really important, is to be on the same journey, because as I was changing and sort of improving my life and improving myself and changing things about me, I wanted to get physically fit. I wanted to start going to the gym. I wanted to be into this personal development mindset stuff. I wanted to be a coach, a mentor, a good dad, a good husband. That's not the guy that my wife married.
Yes.
And I was expecting that from her. Like,
yes,
I was expecting her to be that, you know what I mean? And to be honest with you, like, she doesn't need to be that. She doesn't need to match what I want to do. We just need to be on the same level of support, not the same level of growth. Like, she's not into personal development. She doesn't set goals. That's her thing. She's all right. That's where she's at. We've still got that love, that relationship, that bond, and she supports everything that I do, and that's all I need. You know, and it was me that was expecting more from her. And then obviously after COVID, Stevie couldn't go back to school because of the anxiety and all that. And it was like massive pressure on us because the health anxiety spiraled out of control. He ended up sleeping on our bedroom floor because he couldn't sleep, which then put pressure on me and my wife, you know. And it's sort of about why I brought that up is because it's about hitting that next battle.
Yes.
Like that, the taxi thing was a battle that we needed to overcome, and we did. And then it'll present a new problem. We might get the health anxiety, but then we'll overcome that. And then we'll present a new problem. And I think we're forever doing that as humans anyway. Like, when have you ever not got a problem in your life? Well, Stevie's autistic, he's the same.
And even you, like, again, you said you were in the house and the guy couldn't talk to you, and then your wife couldn't go to the shops. Like, there are people that don't have autism that would be functioning, like, and go out and do whatever they need to do whenever they need to do it. And then COVID did that to them. Someone that you had to, like, obviously with your son and any other child that has any, like, kind of issue, that you have to spend a lot of time developing new patterns, new normals, and then COVID hits. Like, that's like it was inevitability that there's something bad, not bad, it was going to unravel itself back to having to start again. And like you say, like, we all do it. We all, like, my business grows from being, can I pay the bills, can I pay wages, to we need to hit new targets. Now we don't worry about paying bills and paying wages because we know that that's where we're doing well and we can afford that, and I never worry about that anymore. Now it's the next level. So there's another thing to get past, another, and then when I get there, I'm going to go another, and I like you said, it's neutral, it's normal. You're never going to just go.
And just on that point, mate, like when you do just go, you're then coasting.
Yeah.
You then lose your sense of purpose. You lose your why. Then you lose you get that feeling when you get out of bed on the morning, oh, I'm at work again. It's like working in a factory almost, because you've got no drive, you've got no passion. And I wanted to show that to the people around me, because it's like my daughter, for instance. So my Ebony, who's 19, she's got her own business. She sets goals. She's really successful, doing really well, earns a fortune. She's driving. She's doing really well, but she really, really struggled at school. She got thrown out of multiple schools. She ended up having to go to a specialist school because she just didn't get on with school. And she was in a bedroom one night, and I got home from work, and my wife said, you need to go talk to Ebony, because she hadn't stopped crying all day. And I'm like, right, okay. So I goes upstairs, and Ebony's sat in a bedroom, and she was like, she'd just left. Her exams had just finished. She knew she didn't do very well. She was like, Dad, I'll never be nothing. God, I get emotional talking about this, but she was like, Dad, I will never be nothing. I've got no grades. I've now got no friends because I've been in multiple schools, and I don't know where to go, what to do. What am I going to do? Just sit here now forever? And I was grabbed older. I was like, you can be, it almost sounds like some sort of a scene out of a film, but
Rocky moment.
I'm like, Ebony, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Just believe it in here. Just believe it in here. Let's make a plan. And we made a plan for her to go and try new things. And that was the plan. That was it. Right, we're going to try some stuff. She wanted to work in a salon. She didn't like that environment. She ended up getting into the eyelashes. She does eyelashes. And she's amazing at it. And so we got her onto a course. She went and sat this course. She'd set goals to set up her own business. She got her own salon in the center of our town, and she was working from there, but she didn't really get on with the salon environment, so she wanted to do it from home. And she's just like hitting them new levels, but she's watched me.
Yeah.
And I haven't said to her, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. I've just done what I've done. And she's then brought to me and said, Dad, what do I do? And she had to hit that point, I think. She had to hit that point of, I'll never be nothing, to realize that she needed to grow, you know?
I bet you if she reflected on everyone that she knows or in school, all those friends, she is most likely the most successful out of all of them, and they're the ones that
Yeah,
did school well and was remember things so they could recite them in an exam.
yeah,
And
exactly that.
she's the one that's been thriving. But in the grand scheme of things, it's only but like from what really from 12 to 16, 17, 18, maybe where you're in school. So you got like kind of higher education. So your secondary school. So you got like 5, 6 years. Those 5, 6 years feel like an eternity, but like it's a splash in the pan in regards to what your life's going to be. And it doesn't have any representation of what your life is going to be. So the fact that she now has a business, she's successful, she's doing all that, like at 19, she's at 29. What is that? What is she going to be doing versus pretty much 99% of everyone she's ever met in school?
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to do a podcast with her, where she's at right now, because I want to.
Yeah.
What I want to do is, even if that's private, because what I want to do is I want to record her journey at the age of 19 and get her thoughts of what she's achieved in 3 short years.
Yeah.
And then maybe do another one in 10 years' time and see what she's learned in that period of time. Do you know what I mean? Because how amazing would that be to compare the two?
Yeah.
Because,
and there's a lot of people would love that story because they're struggling in school.
yeah,
They're struggling with their peer group. They're struggling with feeling that they don't have what it takes to be something. And then there you have Ebony going, well, I felt the same. And it's like what I always say is that your story, my story, helps someone who is a few years where we were a few years ago, and they can see that there's a light at the end of it. It gives people hope and gives people an opportunity to, hey, maybe this isn't what I need to be doing. Maybe I need to start focusing here. Maybe I could do it here. Maybe I could ask for help. And I think that's the whole point of you go through a hardship and come out on the other end, or even you're going through a hardship. If you're able to then express that and help other people, it's huge. Because how many kids I wasn't very academic.
I
I
wasn't.
could still barely spell. Mm. I have to proof. I get all my stuff proofread because I'm assuming if I did an exam, I'd have some sort of this issues with reading and writing. I don't know. I can't even what's it called.
Well, I had one this morning. I had a
Yeah.
gas safe exam that was like I had to click the multiple choice questions, all that kind of stuff. And I'm reading this thing, and I'm thinking it reminded me of being back at school. And
Yeah.
it was things that trip you up. That kind. It's not about your intelligence. It's about how they can trip you up with your intelligence. You know, and
Yeah.
just don't agree with it. I think like there's some people that just aren't like made for that environment, and I get why they've got every kid needs to go through a process
Yes.
of learning. How can
Yes.
they can't delve into each kid what they're good at and get them in the right thing. It'd just be too much work for the school. You know what I mean? I understand, but it's not the be all and end all. And what I don't agree with is the feeling that the kids get. So like Ebony in that moment, she felt unliked, and what Ebony did was at school, she struggled with the work. So to get out of doing the work, she misbehaved. So then she got thrown out a lesson. And that became a routine. She only had to walk in the lesson and look the wrong way, and the teacher would say, get out.
Yeah.
And it became that her normal. So she felt really unliked by the system almost. Everybody just didn't take a liking to Ebony. And it was like not her, it was just her behaviors. And it was difficult, I get it, for a teacher when she'd walk in and misbehave. So that teacher wants her out of there. They're only human. And for her to go from that situation to where she's at is a massive insight to even anybody listening to this that's in that boat, that young thinking they're not going to do very well in their exams or whatever. That it's not the be all and end all. You will learn what you love and then you'll enjoy what you're doing.
Exactly. I think I agree with you. I think school is important. I think we have to learn basics. We have to understand things, and we have to go through something that we like you said, she had to get to that feeling so she could understand that she needs to do something else. And I think, I know I had to go through that with my business. I had to hit rock bottom. felt like I did. I know you, like you said the same thing. Like you felt like you were just being overwhelmed and just everything was hitting you, and like you have that's where growth happens. You have the right people around you. Now, and you say in certain circumstances, people that would might have felt like Ebony were probably just told to go back to school and stop misbehaving, and then creates massive problems where they weren't listening to what's going on with the child, or you did, and you just said the thing that she needed to hear. You can do what you need to do. You can be what you want to be. We just got to keep trying, and that has led her to where she is now, which is amazing. So yeah, like you'd love to wave your wand and fix the world and say, well, this is what we need to do. But you're right, it's not a great system, but it's a system, and we need all these things in play because it does help a lot of people. At the same time, I believe kids should be taught resilience. I think we should be taught mindset. I think we should have, and if a kid needs more specific time, because some kids can excel in anything, in most things, but they might need an extra year or two of work, of dedication to their development. Whereas just because you're 14 and you're meant to learn this, you mightn't learn that till you're 18. Like I absolutely hated reading books till I was 21. And I remember the first book I willingly read at 21 years of age. And after that, I don't mind reading books if it's the right topic for me. Tried to get me to read a book. My brother, sister, read books all times. I had no desire. It's always for me I should read. Whereas like he's just not into reading. And that's okay. You don't have to, like, yes, you need to understand how to read. But you shouldn't have to be, well, everyone else reads, reading's really good. Yeah, that's great. But if you don't like reading, then you have to find something that you're really invested in, makes you want to read. And I think that's one of the things that we can do, not only as parents. I think the school systems can do all that too, but I think as parents, we need to be understandable that, understand that all, like, you have 3 kids, they're all different. I have 2 kids, they're completely different. One is more empathetic, one is an absolute nightmare in a beautiful, loving way. She's 3, but she's gonna break my heart, that girl. She's gonna hurt me so fierce because she has me wrapped. It's horrendous. It's so bad.
I've got Tilly, who's 10.
Yeah,
and Tilly's just adorable. Like she's loved by everybody. She's never got a bad word to say about anybody. She's just always does the right thing. You know what I mean? She's just so adorable. Yeah. Even if she's done something wrong and we need to tell her off in a certain way, you feel guilty for doing it because she's like that. You know, she looks at you in a certain way and it's like, oh God, I feel really bad now, but she's done this thing. Yeah. And like on that point, like all my kids, all 3 kids are completely different people. You know, like the skills, attribute, everything's just total polar opposites. And it's amazing that they've all had the same upbringing. They've all come, you know, they've all had the same everything, and so different in so many ways. And it's incredible. It is. It's nice to see them on that journey, like, and growing as well. And like Stevie now, he over this last 6 months, he's got to a point where he had the social anxiety. He couldn't go out. He couldn't see people. He's massively into football, by the way. Yeah. I don't know anything about sport. I'm not a football guy, you know what I mean? But he loves it. And he supports Man U. And he's always wanted to go to Man U Stadium, but never believed he could go and watch a game because it'd be too overwhelming. The crowds are huge. It'd be too much for him. And I fit boilers for Worcester. And I was talking about Stevie to the guy who would get the boilers off the Worcester rep. And he's like, he said, oh, does he like football? I said, yeah. He said, well, I've got a season ticket if you ever want to go with him. And I was like, yeah, I do. I'll try it. Let's go. So I got tickets for this game and told Stevie, and he's like, oh, I'm really nervous about it. But he did the research. So he looked up where it was going, what gate we were going to walk in, what that looked like. What's it like when the crowd's building up? What's it like in the seat? Can we see from where our seat is what we're going to see? And he did his own research because he's 16 to do that. Whereas previously it'd be me doing the research and putting it in front of him. He did it himself, and he was like struggling. He was having panic attacks about it. He was anxious about it. And the day came and we set off and he was worried. He was chanting on the way. Then he was really anxious. But we got there and we did it with fear.
Yeah.
We did it with nerves. And I'm filling up now because I remember walking over up them steps to Manchester United, and it worked for me about seeing the pitch because I've got no interest.
Yeah.
My son's face when he saw that pitch is why I'm lighting up, because he feeling that I'm getting looking at him, and it was blown, and we was 2 hours early. We sat in that seat for 2 hours and watched that stadium fill up. And the reason for that was if we walked into it full, he probably wouldn't have coped.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's a preparation. Get prepped for these things. And then he sat there and he watched the full 90 minutes. We went for a pie at half time and we couldn't do that because he was clinging on to me. I had scratches down my arm. I had bruises because he couldn't cope. But we got back to the game and we watched it. And he absolutely loved every second. He loved it. But he couldn't do that 6 months ago.
Yeah. And that's huge. Like, how many people would have been at that stadium? Like
75,000 people.
75,000 people. Like,
so it was incredible. And then we got the opportunity to go again. But the second time we went, I had toothache. I was like in agony. And I'm like driving there and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is, when it's going up into your head and it's like, oh God, it was awful. So I'm sat there and every time they chanted, my head just pounded. I'm thinking, this is the last place I want to be right now, but he's loving it,
Yeah.
And I said to him, Stevie, I need a bottle of water. I need to go get a bottle of water. And he was like, go get one then. And I'm like,
wow.
Well, are you coming? He's like, I ain't missing this game, Dad. And I'm like, and I just went and I walked up them steps and I looked back down the steps. And granted, we was about 3 rows down from where steps were to get, it weren't far. But he sat there and I stood at the top of the steps with this bottle of water and I thought, I'm just waiting. And he's there enthralled in this game on his own in a stadium of 75,000 people. And 6 months ago, he couldn't leave his bedroom. So these things are achievable.
Yes.
It's just approaching him in the right way and finding what he can do and what he's good at, and emphasizing on that. And like I think as a parent, and me especially is guilty, we focus too much on what they can't do. And it's like, he can't do this because of his autism. They can't do that because of his autism. They can't do that. They can't do this. He struggles with this. He struggles with that. Well, I've tried to focus my concentration on what he can do and what he's good at. And this last 6 months, he's turned round. He's like, and I say that loosely. We've still got troubles. We've still got stuff going on because we always will. He's still struggling on a night. He still has health anxiety. Still looking at himself, thinking he hasn't got whatever, but we're at a point where he's trying more and more. He's he's building relationships with his nana and his granddad, his auntie and his uncle, his uncles, whoever around him, and he's trying to build that circle of people up. And at one point, it was just me and his mum.
Yeah.
So we've got growth, So it's really inspiring for me.
That's exactly what. Like, I say this to anyone. I don't like labels and I don't like limiting beliefs in the fact that you can't do something. I said, like, a label is an opinion that someone gave you. It doesn't make you, it doesn't define you. And your son is a testament to that. You're a testament to doing things that you have no interest in, but you do it for your son, which I think is really good, because at the end of it all, like, it's like, oh, well, I went to a few games, but your memory is your son was at those games. And his memory was, I was at those games with my dad. No one's ever going to go, well, my dad hated football, or my dad doesn't watch football. It was the fact of, it's that, like, no one remembers the present you were given last Christmas or the Christmas before. They remember the only reason you remember something is like what happened last year. It's the feeling you have. It's the time spent. And for you, and I'm assuming for you and most other people, is that when I look back on my life, I want my kids to be able to say, my dad would always do things with me. And there's a lot of things like, I'm not into sports. I'm into football. My son loves football. I'll go out and play football with him. I couldn't care less about it. I'd watch it. I'll go to a match with my son. That's one of our plans, is to go and bring him to a United game. But at the same time, it's because of what he wants to do and he loves it so much. And if he ever struggles with anything, we will work on that. That's the goal. It's like we look back on it, as there's obviously as we age and all that. It's like, well, what happened? Well, we didn't try, and we didn't keep trying. It doesn't matter how many times you fail on it. And as I think as a parent, you'll fail multiple times. But if you keep trying, your memories for them and their memories for you will be everlasting. And I think that's the legacy that you want to leave with your kid, your daughters as well. And like again, I think that's amazing. Like 6 months ago, he wouldn't leave his room, and then he's willing to sit in a concert with 75,000 people, and you're allowed to leave him to go get water. I think that's huge. Like that's there's people that wouldn't. My wife wouldn't want me leaving the chair to go get water at something like that. She'd be like, "Where are you going? I'll come with you." You know what I mean? Like, like that's huge, and like I think it's a testament to not only your son's mental strength and resolve, but also you for helping. And like you did it with Ebony,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, Ebony, and obviously Stevie. And you see when the younger girl is older and things happen, like you'll be there for like. But that's the thing. Like you're willing to always like don't give yourself a glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And you had a setback through COVID, and he ended up like kind of into his room and stuff like that. But that, well, okay, well, that's where we are. We got to start again, and it doesn't matter how many, like that whole thing. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. You just got to get back up and take another step forward. Otherwise, it'll only get because you never stay the same. You either keep moving forward or you start getting worse. You never just go, yeah, we're good now forever. So, and I that's huge. That's absolutely huge. So, Steve, obviously, we've been. That's a quick hour. So, what's the goal now with you? Obviously, business, all of that. What would be things that you're kind of looking towards now?
So this is a new thing. Well, not so new thing. It's something I've been thinking about for the last couple of years. But I want to help other trades business owners own the business, and I want them to boss it, and I want them to do what I've done in terms of getting the time back and not have that stress and that worry. And I've created a course that other engineers can come on and learn about and implement in their business. That stuff that works. I've worked with a lot of coaches and a lot of mentors. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Some of it was a waste of time learning that to not implement it, if you know what I mean. So what I've created is something, what the strategies and the things that I feel is important to get very big wins straight away and quick, so that you can see it working to then work on that. So I've created this course, and it's in its sort of first stages. So that moving forward is where I want to be, because I've built this business that sort of gives me time. So I've now got time to create these courses to help others to be on this Zoom right now without it interfering with my work, and have that time back. And I want that for everybody else. I want to be able to help other people. So that's where I want to go with it. And my business, I tried to expand it, and I didn't like it. I had the systems and the stuff in place, but the staff, especially tradesmen, it was just too much. I got overwhelmed by it. So I brought it back to just me and the apprentice. It runs itself pretty much. I almost feel like I work for somebody else, because my diary just fills up automatically without my input. So I literally get up, look in where I'm working that day, and off I go. My materials are ordered, everything's done. So it's like I work for somebody else, which is great. But I don't want to expand on that. I want to try and help people get to that level.
Yes, that's brilliant. I think that's very like it's. I think the way you've come from, what you're doing, also being a father and a husband and getting it all done, but actually going through the hardships of things on you, and you can't talk about it and discuss it, and how you're able to overcome that it's exceptional. And there is a lot of people out there that could take a lot of value from your story and what you're doing and how you're able to help people. And I think you're naturally, and this is the first time we've met. Like we spoke through a text on Facebook, how we first communicated. And I'm hoping I'll definitely get to meet you at one of the quarterlies. But based off the last hour, you're definitely someone that has a natural gift to impact people to be better. And I think that is something that shouldn't be wasted. And you, by the sounds of things, you are not going to waste it, which I think is amazing. So just firstly say thank you for coming on the show, because it was definitely an enjoyable story to hear. And guys, if you like what Stephen has done, sure we can put any sort of social media links in below.
I'll send you a link to put in the socials.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll put that in. And then you guys, if you like the show, again, obviously a like, subscribe. If you have any questions for Stephen, you want to just drop them in the comments. I'll pass them on to him, and if you feel free to answer them, or if I can answer any questions that you may have, that'd be epic too. And again, from me and from Stephen, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And Stephen, thank you for being on the show.
The big thing I say is, like, you got to win the morning.
Heavy requirements on them to lift heavy weights.
The conversation has to be changed.
What you truly value.
No right way and there's no wrong way.
Become the source of struggle.
I kept finding myself in tears from the physical pain.
You're listening to the Stephen Kinsler podcast.